Hello, this is Mrs. Barker taking you through our non-fiction scheme of work again this week. Just a reminder that there is a worksheet that will be up available for this. You can type straight onto that or you can print it out. If you don't have a printer and you don't want to type it in, then you can just write it on a piece of paper. Don't worry about that one bit. So here's our starter. Look back at your EBI from your last lesson. How are you going to make sure you improve today? What are you going to do differently? And think about how we read. Have a go at listing as many different ways of reading as you can. Now you should have come across skimming and scanning before, so we're going to think about what they are and what the differences are. So just think through these questions. So where have you come across the word skim before? Have you used it in any other contexts? Skimming the cream off milk, skimming a stone. What does it suggest it means? And where have you heard the word scan before? Where have you heard that in any other context? Scanning your work in. Scanning something for detail. Where have you heard it before? How can you relate this to reading, and what are you being asked to do when you skim or scan a text? Now you're going to come up with a definition. So write a definition for skimming on your sheet or your piece of paper. There's a definition below here. You can use that. You can use your own words. You can bullet point. You can copy it. I don't mind. But I do want you to make sure you've got as good a definition of skimming as you can. There are also some examples of things you could do when you skim below that as well, so consider those as you go. Now we're going to do the same thing but for scanning. So again, write a definition onto a sheet or your piece of paper or type it in. Explore the definition below. You can use your own words, you can bullet point, you can copy again, and remember the techniques that are there as well, things you can do when you scan. Now we're going to have a go at some skimming and some scanning. So what I want you to do is I want you to read through the three different texts. So on three different slides. There's a piece which is descriptive writing from a story, one that's formal writing from a letter, and one that's informative writing from a report. And I want you to guess which is which. Easy, right? Maybe not. We've reordered all the words, so they're not going to make any sense. Don't worry, you're not going crazy. What I want you to do is to look at them and see if you can figure out, just from the words that are there, what type of text it is. Is it descriptive writing, the formal writing with the letter, or the informative writing from a report? Skim and scan through and see if you can figure it out. How did you get on then? Bit difficult, wasn't it? Bit different. So let's have a look at them in turn. All right. So this one is, the first one is the information text. So if we look at the connectives used, if we think about how the word it, the third person, is used a lot, so it suggests it's not about a person, for example. Is used a lot, which indicates the present tense. And the words are generally straightforward and easy to understand. Okay, those things tell us that it may well be an information text, which it is. So have a read through this extract so that it makes sense to you now that you can see the words in their correct order. Now we have the descriptive passage. Let's look at the connectives used. So we've got suddenly. Things like that suggest there's some kind of narrative. There are clearly adjectives: bright, off-white, thunderous. We've got the use of powerful verbs, and it's even more marked here: boomed, churned. Very strong, not just said or made. Okay, it's boomed and churned. And there are effective adverbs as well: plaintively. Remember, a word that ends in a ly or illy is often an adverb. The verbs often end in ed, indicating the past tense, something you'd get more often in a descriptive passage than in some other types. So have a read through this piece and see how you can see that it's a descriptive text now. And finally, we come to the formal letter. So let's have a look at some of the features here. First of all, we have formal sounding connectives, which we don't generally use in speech. For example, aforementioned, hereinafter. There are formal ways of putting familiar words. So residence instead of home, sibling instead of brother or sister. The word you is used frequently, suggesting it's speaking in particular to one person, in this case, Ms. White. And there are formal titles used, for example, Mr., Mrs., Ms. Have a read of this text here. If when you have done that, you're looking at it and thinking, okay, I get that, but I don't quite see how I was supposed to get that from the first 3 slides. Go back to slide 6, go back and have a look at them again. The reason we reordered them is because it makes you focus on the language. And so you might find it helpful to go back, to zip back to slide 6, 7 and 8 and just have another look at those. So just basically rewind on this film. Now, one of the reasons we use skimming and scanning is to identify key points. When you're reading a text, you should first look to identify main ideas, and that can be done by looking for repeated ideas, words or phrases. Now, in this case, we can see the word steak is repeated 3 times. It's once in the title, once in the first paragraph, and once in the third paragraph. That suggests it's a key idea of the text. It's not even just in one paragraph, it's across the text we've got here. Have a look through, give yourself a few minutes, so take your time. Can you find any other repeated ideas in this text? Pause it here and do that first. So you've been through, you've had a look. Are there any other words or ideas that you can find? One that I thought was about the idea of cooking. So you've got, in the second paragraph, you've got cooked, the final word. You can begin to think about how you prefer it cooked. Then in the first line of the third paragraph, you've got cooking. And then you've got other words which could be connected. So crucifying, rubber, texture, tender, tough. All of those words are to do with cooking. You may not have picked those up, but when you're going through, it might be, when you're skimming and scanning, it's something you can look for. Now I'm going to go through and look at a specific text. And I want you to find 4 pieces of information. Okay, so first of all, which paragraph shows the reasons for Jonah's difficult childhood? Number 2, which paragraph explains Jonah's experiences at school? Number 3, which paragraph tells us which religion Jonah finds most interesting? And number 4, what does paragraph 6 tell us about Jonah's ambitions? Now you're going to need to use a combination of skimming and scanning here. So remember, scanning can be looking to find specific information. So you can look for a keyword, a figure, a name. It's almost like doing a Google search with your eyes on the piece of writing. So think about what words might you associate with childhood. Child, childhood, those would be 2 you could use. If you're thinking about the second question, you might be looking for the word school, for example. But as you get down towards question 4, you're going towards skimming, which is reading quickly to get a general idea of meaning. So you're looking for information about his ambitions. Now, you might just scan for the word ambition, but if it's not there, you might have to skim read to try and find detail about his ambitions. So those are on the next couple of slides. I've split the blue box into 2 across 2 slides so that it's big enough for you to read when it's on Google Classrooms. So go through and have a go at that and put your answers on the sheet or on your piece of paper. How did you get on? Let's have a look at some answers, shall we? So, first of all, which paragraph shows the reasons for Jonah's difficult childhood? So we're looking for things to do with difficult or things to do with childhood. So we could have found anything to do with young, childhood, difficult, tough, even tragic, words like that we could have looked for. And in paragraph one, we find life was tough for Jonah. And we've got the word growing up, so that shows that it's when he's younger. Then question 2, which paragraph explains Jonah's experiences at school? So if we go to paragraph 4, then we find the word school. So we know that that one is the one that's about school, and we can just skim through, and we've got subjects, we've got RE, and we find that those are to do with school as well. Then so question 3, which paragraph tells us which religion Jonah finds most interesting? Again, if we want to find the answer to that, we need to look for the words religion, faith, or the names of some religions like Christianity or Buddhism. So we find that in paragraph 5, one particular religion excited Jonah. He was fascinated by Buddhism. On the internet, he found information about the Dalai Lama. Okay, so we find those keywords that tell us it's going to be that paragraph. And finally, in 4, we have to go in a little bit more detail here for question 4. What does paragraph 6 tell us about Jonah's ambitions? So we go through and we find that he wanted to get the best grades, get a better job, and save even more money. Hopefully you did really well. If you didn't, this is something to think about for you what went well and even better if in a minute. And it might be worth going back and taking the time to go back and see if you can do it again almost, see what my points are, and if that makes sense, then you'll have a better idea of how to do it next time. So here we go, peer and self-assessment. So this is the moment to think about what you've done really well and what you could have done better. So for example, this one thing you've learned or done today, so I can explain the difference between skimming and scanning, or I correctly identified which paragraph talked about Jonah's interest in religion, something like that. Even better if, was there a bit you didn't do quite so well on? It could be, I didn't understand how to use keywords to scan through a text. If so, that can be something you can improve next time. Then, without looking at notes, have a quick go. Can you define skimming and can you define scanning? And then, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you later in the week. Thank you very much. Bye.